Hey, what's going on guys, Chris here, and well, we've recently been given a nice little preview of Battlefield 1's In the Name of the Tsar DLC, which we saw at EA's conference at E3. And if you haven't already managed to check it out yet, you can see it rolling along in the background of this video at the moment. It was only a bit of a snippet of what's to come, the trailer literally only lasted about a minute, but it was enough to give us an idea of what kind of stuff we're going to be getting in the upcoming DLC. And along with the trailer, DICE has also given us some more information about the new maps, weapons, vehicles, a new game mode, and of course the DLC's release date. So as for the maps in the Russian DLC, this time around we're actually going to be getting more than usual, as the DLCs in the past for Battlefield, including the last DLC, They Shall Not Pass, traditionally had a total of 4 maps at launch. Well, this time we're getting 6, 2 more than normal, and this isn't including the 2 extra nighttime maps releasing over summer, which is basically an extension to the last DLC. So yeah, cheers DICE. It's always nice to see extra content. As of right now though, we only know about 4 of the new maps, so whether the other 2 are going to release with those 4, or whether they get spread out after the DLC releases, which is a possibility, remains to be seen. But as for the 4 maps, the first one's called Lupkow Pass. Here's the description. Fight in the snow-covered ravines of the treacherous Lupkow Pass. Against this dramatic backdrop, the vertical fights are as bitter as the cold. So this is definitely going to be a snowy map, and it's going to pit the Russian Empire against the Austro-Hungarian army along Lupkow Pass in the Carpathian Mountains on the border between Poland and Slovakia. Quite a lot of battles took place to control the pass during the cold winters of 1914 and 1915, as it was a very important communications link for the Austro-Hungarian forces. And the fact that a railway line ran right through a network of tunnels and bridges over the ravine leads me to think that the armoured train might be a possible behemoth choice for this map, which would totally make sense. The train would link up in an area in Eastern Europe called Galicia, which in the past straddled over the border between Ukraine and Poland. And this nicely leads me over to the next map in our list, which goes by the name of Galicia. In the midst of the Brusilov offensive, the Russian Empire is fighting to push back the Austro-Hungarian forces in the Russian countryside. Take an open map focused on infantry, cavalry and light vehicles. This map is going to continue the fight between Russian and Austro-Hungarian troops in a slightly less snowy, rural type map with more farmland. It's probably not going to be a map full of heavy tanks and armour, with the description implying it's more focused on infantry fighting and light vehicles. And it's probably going to be a good one for snipers, with the map featuring open fields. With the Galicia map taking place on the same rail line as the one in Lupkow Pass, and the fact that they both feature both the Russians and the Austro-Hungarian armies, means that these two are likely going to be part of the same operation in operations. The next map in our list is called Albion. Partake in the skirmishes of the Albion Assault in the freezing archipelago. In this massive invasion on the Baltic Peninsula, the German Empire attacks with infantry, dreadnoughts and aircraft against the heavy coastal gun batteries of the Russian forces. So yeah, remember that massive bloody cannon we saw in the early concept art for the DLC? Sounds like we're actually going to be able to use them after all. I guess it'd be a bit cruel for DICE to tease us with something that looks that cool, and not let us play around with it. Though I'm guessing that the coastal guns are probably mainly going to be used for taking out vehicles as opposed to infantry, which would be overkill. It's going to be another snowy map by the looks of things, and we'll finally be able to put those gunboats to good use, with the map taking place on the coast. Operation Albion was a German land and naval operation which took place in October 1917. With the main goal to occupy the islands, using them to outflank Russian defences, leaving St. Petersburg vulnerable to attack. The last map on the list is yet another snowy one, called Brusilov Keep. Here's the description. The Russians have pushed their enemy into a small mountain town, but the Austro-Hungarians are making a strong stand. Experience close-quarter fights by the Carpathians on an infantry-focused map. The Brusilov offensive was one of the most brutal attacks against the Central Powers, resulting in a huge amount of casualties and deaths on both sides of battle. The Russians won in the end, but lost a hell of a lot of troops because of it. This map sounds like it's going to be designed more so for close quarter battles, with it taking place within a mountainous town. I'm guessing there's going to be lots of buildings and probably very few vehicles, with the exception of horses and maybe some light tanks and transportation. The interesting thing about the description here is the fact that it clearly states that the Russians have pushed their enemies back, which heavily suggests that this will be the second phase of an operation. But something probably more interesting is the fact that it features Austro-Hungarian forces playing the defensive role. So this could mean that Brusilov Keep probably won't be connected with Galicia, with the Russians taking a defensive role on that map rather than offensive. It might link up with one of the 2 unannounced maps to form an operation, and if that's the case, it's most likely that the other unannounced map will feature the Germans attacking to form an operation with the map Albion. None of this is actually confirmed, so take it with a pinch of salt, but in theory, this could possibly be the layout of the operation set to release in the DLC. And with operations being one of the most popular game modes in Battlefield 1, and with DICE working on it more so recently to create rotating playlists, it makes total sense to add in more operations, to keep the players busy and satisfied with the DLC. Speaking of game modes, In the Name of the Tsar is going to have its very own game mode, which is going to be called Supply Drop. It's going to play out in a similar way to the Drop Zone mode in Star Wars Battlefront, where teams must fight over packages dropped by aircraft above, giving them access to all kinds of useful stuff like vehicles, ammunition, health, and elite class pickups. And this is all inspired by the aerial supply drops on the Eastern Front in the Great War, to keep ground troops going through battle, as they had very limited resources to hold down areas and remain in the fight. Points will be gained by capturing supply drops, and items gained from each drop can be used to achieve the next drop. It all sounds pretty interesting, especially with the game mode supposedly taking place on Battlefield 1's large sprawling maps, unlike Drop Zone in Star Wars Battlefront, which only made use of the small maps. Now swiftly moving on, let's talk about the weapons and gadgets. DICE has confirmed that there's going to be a total of 11 in the DLC, so a few more than normal. Plus there's no indication as to how many variations of each gun we're going to be getting either. So in the end, we could be getting quite a lot. Though some of the things we should expect to see, which can be seen in the latest trailer, are the Mosin Nagant's M91, which would be a scout class weapon, the Parabellum MG1417, which would be a support gun, and the double barrel shotgun, which would make its way into the assault class. We already speculated that these guns were most likely going to make their way into the DLC, down to the concept art, and just down to general knowledge. I actually mentioned all 3 of these weapons in an earlier video not too long ago, along with a few other possibilities, but at least now we can actually see some of them briefly in action from that trailer. I'm going to imagine that all of the DLC guns are going to be locked behind a set of challenges first, just like they were in They Shall Not Pass. And these challenges are most likely going to involve some of the lesser used weapons and gadgets to try and help boost their popularity a bit in the game. But along with the new guns, we're also going to be able to use some new melee weapons too. And one that stands out quite prominently in that recent trailer is the Cavalry Lance, which we can see right here. By the looks of things, we're probably going to be able to skewer other players like a kebab, and this is going to be available to use for the Cavalry class. No word on it being a standard infantry melee weapon as of yet, but if the saber can be a lot for infantry use, then the lance might also be an option too. You never know. The Russian standard 1912 grenade, aka the lantern head grenade, as it looks a bit like an old lantern, will also be making its way into the DLC too. We can actually see a soldier holding onto one of these in the Brusilov Keep concept art. This might be a brand new grenade type with its very own properties, or it just might be a reskin of the standard frag grenade, but used specifically by the Russians, which is probably most likely. Playing out in a similar way to the stick grenade used by the Germans, Ottomans and the Austro-Hungarian forces. In the Name of the Tsar is also going to give us access to a whole bunch of new Russian vehicles, such as the Ilya Muramet, hope I pronounced that one right, a heavy bomber which we can see in the Galicia concept art. Another vehicle which will probably be used a lot on the Albion map is the Wylighter landing craft, a passenger ship which will mainly be used to transport troops up into the objectives. And of course, we're going to be able to get behind the wheel of the Gartford Putilov, a Russian armoured car which we can see in some of the concept artwork too. We're also going to be able to play as female soldiers too for the first time ever in the Battlefield franchise, representing the Women's Battalion of Death, though this will only be for the Scout class. The DLC is also going to give us access to a whole bunch of new medals, dog tags and service stars, along with some skins for the new guns available too. So, In the Name of the Tsar is looking to be a very big DLC with tons of content, one of the biggest in the Battlefield franchise so far. There's quite a lot to look forward to here, but unfortunately, we won't be able to get our hands on it until September, so quite a bit of waiting around for it in the meantime. But the fact that we'll be getting a bit more content than we usually do in the DLC, and with the fact that we're going to be treated with new maps and monthly updates until then, just makes the wait a bit more bearable. I'll be covering Battlefield 1's In the Name of the Tsar DLC more so soon, and when it finally gets released, expect to see a load of new weapon guides for all of those new guns popping up on my channel. If you want to check out my already existing guides for the other weapons in Battlefield 1, then feel free to do so. And if you enjoy the videos, give me a like and subscribe to stay updated with all of that fresh content. But anyway, are you excited for In the Name of the Tsar? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in that next one.